Well, this week in the Pac-12 North, kind of sounds like a soap opera, doesn't it? And it kind of is with everything going on with COVID. We're going to give you updates, Bears, Ducks, coming up now. Hey everybody, welcome to Elite Athletes TV. I'm Mike Pulaski, former 11-year pro quarterback and quarterbacks coach here at EliteAthletesTV.com. Today, we're talking about the Pac-12 North, Bears versus Ducks. Big matchup. A lot of Cal's coaching staff comes from Oregon. Oregon was supposed to be the premier team in the North, but they got knocked off last week by Oregon State. Both teams coming off rivalry losses. It's a big one. I'm talking to Mike Jorgensen, analyst for the University of Oregon, former Duck quarterback. So we have two former quarterbacks, two color analysts talking college football. Before we get started, make sure if you haven't done it yet, you like football content, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. Get notified every time we have new stuff coming out. Give me a thumbs up if you're looking forward to talking Pac-12 football, college football, Cal, Oregon, any of that stuff. Leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. I know you Oregon fans are out there. Leave me a comment down below. Tell me about your Ducks. And make sure you share this video out. Family, friends, teammates, fans, coaches, anybody who digs football content, please share this video out. Help us grow this channel and help more young athletes. I talked to Mike Jorgensen before the season, and we were discussing the Ducks. I personally thought maybe the media was giving them a little bit too much credit because they had 74% of their team as underclassmen and a brand new offensive line and a brand new quarterback. Well, they've done pretty good at that quarterback position. They're running the ball pretty well, but defense of all things hasn't really shown up this year. So they're giving up a lot of yards. They're just coming off a big loss. Like I said, Cal's coming off a big loss versus Stanford. And Jorgie and I are going to shoot it around and talk about the game coming up right now. Jorgie, welcome back, brother. How you doing?
Doing good. Doing good.
This week, a big one for both teams, right? Both teams lose their rivalry game last week. Talk to me about that Oregon State game.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it was a wild one. I think everybody had a chance to watch that game in the fog and that type of deal. And you know, in the end, Oregon State just made plays, and they never died. And every opportunity that Oregon had really to kind of put this thing away, be able to lengthen the lead, hold the lead, whatever it was, Oregon State never flinched. And I tell you, I got to tip my cap to those guys. It's a couple of weeks in a row, obviously with Cal and with Oregon, where maybe some things happened early on, either got the lead, lost the lead, whatever it was. But there's a certain little belief that it looks like those guys have the way that they're playing and the way that they played football this year. And they got the better of Oregon, and particularly on the ground game with Jamar Jefferson and what he was able to do, which allowed Jebbia to be an effective quarterback and throw the ball anytime you can run it. You got a good chance you're going to be able to throw it, and run it they did. And then they just made key defensive plays at the right time. And got to tip my cap to the Beavers that they earned that victory.
No doubt about it. And I'd say the same thing for Cal. They just kept coming. Both teams, Cal and Oregon, have the distinction of making Jamar Jefferson the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Week. So 2 weeks in a row, he's the Offensive Player of the Week. He's a baller there. I mean, he's as good as you get at running back right now. Just his ability to hit the hole. He's got great speed, great anticipation, great vision. So yeah. just a great running back.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, it's the breakaway speed thing that kind of fooled me a little bit. I mean, his first touch against Cal, obviously, into the wide open and on down the field. They did the same thing against Oregon's first touch of the game, goes 80-plus yards. And I was surprised the way he was able to get into the clear, and nobody really closed on him. But great instincts, sets up blocks perfectly. He's got that great combination of some size, good speed, and instincts that are really, really good.
No doubt about it. All right, let's get back to the game at hand here. Ducks, Bears this weekend. Let's talk about Oregon's offense first. We knew going in the Ducks had great running game. So Verdell has been good. Dye has been good. They're kind of a 1-2 punch right now for the Ducks. Talk about that running game.
Well, I think what really helps it out is not only they are good runners out of the backfield, they're good receivers as well. They're able to do some damage, and Tyler Shuck's able to get those guys involved in the game. Travis Dye's had some big plays, obviously some big plays that have resulted in TDs as a receiver, but he's also kind of an underrated back. He's not a big guy, maybe 190 pounds, but just seems to find a way to get down the field and sometimes carry guys on his back when he's not really the Verdell type of player. And CJ Verdell, he's more that type of guy, very sudden. Everything is just a burst. If you're in his way, rather than sometimes trying to run around you, he'll run over you. He just loves contact. He's got great speed. But that's a great 1-2 combination that they have right now, that if one guy's not feeling it, they're able to plug in the other guy. And that's somewhat what they've done this year a little bit. CJ Verdell has played well at times, and then he's kind of disappeared at times. And Dye has been the guy that's been the consistency in between to be able to spell and make some plays and make some key plays in games. It's a nice 1-2 combination, I think, for that offense to have.
I know it was nice to have when you have running backs like that, the 1-2 punch. I'm going to tell you, watching film, Dye looks faster to me this year. You talked about it on those, big explosive plays on the pass, hitting the wheel route. But when he hits that open field, he looks way faster to me this year than he was last year.
Yeah, I think so. And again, he's just added a little bit, a move or two to his repertoire. And when he gets in the open field and maybe somebody has an angle on him, a little stop and go, maybe a 360 spin here and there. You never know quite what he's going to do when he gets into the secondary. But I agree. It looks like he almost a half to a full step faster. Guys don't close the gap on him anymore. He's got that burst, and then he keeps that distance and that separation when he does make that play.
All right, so let's talk about the quarterback. Obviously, last year's quarterback is going to be in the Pro Bowl this year. Pretty good player at the next level. But Tyler Shuck comes in, some big shoes to fill. He's passing for 250 a game and running for 50 a game, which Herbert got out and ran last year, but they didn't really program him into that whole running game. Shuck's part of that running game this year.
Yeah, he is. And Joe Moorhead has always liked to run the quarterback, and he's made no bones about it that in this offense, the quarterback is going to need to be a run threat and is a run threat. And that run pass option, he runs it well. And he's a good athlete, too. That's the thing about it, is with he and the backup Brown that was transferred in from Boston College, they're pretty good sized guys. They're both about 6'4", 215, 220 or so, but they've got good feet and good speed. Not great speed, but good speed. And Tyler Shuck also, with that run pass option portion of it, he hides the ball really well. He does a good job of carrying out his fakes. He really concentrates on that piece of it that can fool some guys sometimes. And, the first 3 games, he was an effective runner and got out of the pocket a few times and made, teams pay. But this last week, Oregon State, I thought, did a really nice job of kind of bottling him up. They got to him in the backfield. They put some pressure on him, and they forced him to force the ball. And that's, a few things that he's done this year is he's made a lot of big plays, but he's also forced the ball in a few situations, and the Beavers this last week made him pay for it.
And you talk about one of the things, I just did a video on Tyler Shuck. Anybody wants to see it can see it right up here, card coming up, and I'll put a link down in the comment section down below. But I noticed he makes that classic young quarterback mistake. You were a young quarterback once. I was a young quarterback once, way back when. And you would, if your front side was cut off, you'd come back to your next progression and kind of throw it sight unseen. I've seen him do that a couple of times. He did it versus Stanford and got intercepted. Should have been intercepted versus Washington State. And so is he evolving in front of your eyes, I should ask, because he's still making some young quarterback mistakes.
Well, it looked like it against UCLA. I mean, he didn't throw a ball that was even close to being picked by the Bruins. And then this last week against Oregon State, there were a few opportunities that the Beavers had. They made him pay on 2 of them. He's made a lot of big plays, but every once in a while, he'll lock in on that guy wherever he might be, whether it's a flag route, a crossing route, maybe into a crowd a little bit. He'll force 1 or 2 a game in there. But again, as you mentioned, he's a young quarterback. And even though he has played 4 games and they've been productive on offense, getting close to 40 points per game, and you would hope that that's going to be enough in most games to be able to win. Those are the little things that I know that he's working on and the coaching staff is working really hard on, is don't force it. If it's not there, eat it. Sometimes you got to take that sack. You got good feet, get out of there, or chuck that thing 3 rows up into the stands and just get rid of it. He's getting there 4 games into it.
Usually most guys get spring ball to rep it out. They get all summer to rep it out too. This has been such a weird offseason this year that you haven't gotten you didn't really get a good look until you got to fall camp once the Pac-12 came back alive. So I think a lot of this young player stuff and a lot of the mistakes and the turnovers, this is going to be the season for that stuff to show up because you haven't had the reps that you've had in the past. Talk about that receiver group. He's got some really nice receivers. I love Red. He's fantastic. He's catching that deep ball like nobody else right now. Johnson, the third, looks great. You got some young kids out there. So he's got some weapons to throw to.
Yeah, he does. And Devin Williams, the transfer from USC, is a guy who's now broken on the scene the last couple of games, in particular with 100-yard receiving games in the last 2. And so he's a guy all of a sudden when you start adding him into it, you really haven't had Micah Pittman to be able to throw in. There's been some receivers that just frankly haven't been able to play, and Micah Pittman is one of them ever since the first game. And so when you can add him back in and along with Red, along with Johnny Johnson III, who was Oregon's leading receiver coming into this season, and one of the leaders in the conference in total yards last year coming into the season, ball hasn't been targeted to him quite as much, but I think that's going to probably change a little bit. He's just a steady Freddie guy that really burst on the scene last year. Had a lot of drops his sophomore year, Johnny Johnson the third did, but last year, big breakout year. This year just hasn't had a ton of balls thrown his way. Whenever it seems to come his way, he makes a tough catch. But I like the group of receivers, and I think Tyler Shuck really works well with them, and they like that chemistry that they have, the receivers with him. And it's just a matter of offensive line really protecting and making things happen. I think they've got the tools at the skill positions. Now it's just a matter of how can that line of scrimmage, offense and defense, really play. And they've struggled on the defensive side of it too.
And we talked about it at the beginning of the season. Anytime you get 5 new guys in that offensive line, it takes them a while for them to get together, and no practice in the offseason, no spring ball. Same thing for them. It takes a while to form some cohesion on that offensive line. So I've seen some ups and downs up there. I've seen some really good stuff running the ball. I've seen some interesting stuff in pass protection. But I think that group's just going to keep getting better too. Let's switch to the other side of the ball now. Defense is where Oregon was supposed to be dominant this year coming into the season. They were supposed to be really good. And you and I talked about this, and I think we all expected them to be really good. I was shocked when I looked at the stats getting ready for this week's game. Almost 460 yards a game they're giving up right now.
And on the ground. I mean, that's the thing that I think has surprised anybody as much. There were opt-outs in the secondary with Holland and Brady Breeze, Rose Bowl MVP, Thomas Graham at the corner. You lost basically 3/4 of your secondary, and yet they've got pretty good talent that's filled in behind it. Diamador Lenora came back, and he was a guy that looked like he was going to opt out, came back in. Mikhail Wright is a really good corner. So they're really pretty good within the secondary, but it's along the defensive line, I think, has been a little bit of a head scratcher, frankly. Guys like Jordan Scott and Austin Faliu, guys that have played and have started for 3 years coming into this year and played some really good football last year, along with Kayvon Thibodeau, who has been the guy that is still not bursting on the scene anymore. He's just steady Freddie. He's a guy that makes a lot of plays, real high motor type of deal. But the mystery is elsewhere. Teams are really gashing them. Last couple of weeks, UCLA took advantage of them on the ground. Last week, Oregon State, with a pretty good offensive line, I think underrated, took advantage of them on the ground. And I can just imagine this week with Bill Musgrave probably going double tight end, fullback, line it up, and let's try to load it with a freshman running back that went for over 100 last year, licking their chops and see if they can do it. So it's going to be a big challenge for this Oregon defense to almost kind of a pride type of deal, because it's the same guys for the most part that played such great football last year. There's something that's just a chemistry thing. I don't know what it is, but right now teams are getting the better of them at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, haven't locked it all together. And every football coach, except for Mike Leach, of course, the first thing they say is, we're going to establish the run first. So I'm sure everybody around the country is saying that every game, establish the run first, and then abandon it, go straight to the pass, whatever. The last department, which kind of tells a little bit of a tale here, is turnovers. I was shocked also to see that Oregon's -5 in the turnover takeaway ratio right now. And that's a tough number to have 3 wins, to be as successful as they are, but -5. They're in a pretty good spot for giving the ball away that much.
Yeah, pretty fortunate, no doubt about it. The takeaways against UCLA, I think they had 4 that resulted in 28 points that helped them really get to that victory. Was the defense was able to take it away that game. But in all the other games, they really have not defensively caused turnovers, and the offense has played giveaway in those games and has gotten away with it a little bit. So that's something that's a flip-flop from last year. Last year it was so much to the other side of where Oregon was in the plus column, double digits. And those double digits lead to a lot of extra possessions, as you know, a lot of points oftentimes when you have the short field to be able to get those points. This year, it's exactly the opposite. So they've got to take a lot better care of the ball, particularly if they're going to, think they're going to have a chance with the Cal Bears this week, who are getting better and better and better each and every week. You can't make those mistakes in these type of games, get away with it.
All right. We're both insiders, right? We both call the game. And I'm going to ask you, I'll give it up first. If you were going to go after Oregon, where would you go after them? I know this on offense. If I'm going after Cal, their defensive line has been really thin, right? They missed the first couple of weeks. They had the quarantine. Those guys didn't even get to practice until the day of the UCLA game. They didn't get to be on the field at the same time. Thin at that body. And so I would try to take advantage of Oregon's strength right now, and I would run the ball at them. I'd force them to stop the run first because I'd try to take advantage of that. If you're going against Oregon, where would you attack on offense?
Well, I mean, if you're going against Oregon offensively, I'd do the same thing. I mean, prove that Oregon can stop the run, because that's not something they've been able to do the last couple of weeks. And the way that Cal is beginning to run the ball now, that's the whole thing about it, is that offensive line is really beginning to gel. You've got a really young, talented freshman running back and a couple of really good running backs, frankly, that are able to make some plays. Obviously, you got a winner in Chase Garbers that can make you sometimes pay with his legs. He's been a winner throughout. They've struggled a little bit to kind of get things going this year, but I would force Oregon to prove that they can stop the run consistently. If they can, I think it's going to be tough to beat Oregon because the Ducks are still going to score points. They may not throw on Cal quite as much, just for the fact that Cal's pass defense has been so good back there, Bynum and company, really locking people down. But I would go after them at the line of scrimmage, and that's what Oregon really loves to do, and they won't go away from it. Mario Cristobal and that offensive line, they love to establish the run first to set up everything else. That's not to say they might not come out and throw the ball right off the bat, but they're still going to settle into a run game. And they've got to run more offensive plays too. Oregon does. They've only been running about 66 plays a game. That's not very many. They were running close to 80 last year. Give their defense a break. But if I'm Cal, I go at the line of scrimmage and see what you can do.
I remember when they were looking to hit that 100 mark under Chip.
Yeah, right.
Constant tempo, getting that ball off all the time.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah, an Oregon team only running 66 a game does not seem right.
Yeah, it doesn't. And I think for most offenses, that doesn't seem right. You want to be up in the 75, 80 play range just to be able to either wear down a defense or do some different things. Again, turnovers will hurt you that way. Third down conversions have been great, but they've fallen off the last 2 weeks. They were hot the first 2 weeks, haven't been so hot the last 2 weeks. But again, you and I are going to probably say it till we're blue in the face. Line of scrimmage in this game, and as every game in Oregon's case, line of scrimmage at this game on both sides of the ball, that's going to be the tell sign to me. If either team can run it with effectiveness, they're going to have a lot of effectiveness through the air and score a lot of points in this game.
That's awesome. Jorgie, I appreciate you coming on with me today, brother. Looking forward to calling this game. Looking forward to seeing kind of the products that show up on the field for both teams. I know Oregon's going to be angry, and Cal's looking to get one on the board. They need that big win, so I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, big, great physical game. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Jimmy. I appreciate it.
It looks to be an interesting game this week in Berkeley. So home field advantage, and I think that's even bigger now during COVID. And the Bears get their offensive line back. So these guys have been missing because of a contact trace for the COVID issues. And so they get most of their starting offensive line back. They get Chris Brown healthy back at running back. I think he's a difference maker. And so we'll see what they show up on the field with, still really thin at that defensive line spot. But defense has been decently solid so far this year, even for missing a lot of bodies. So I'm looking forward to the game coming up. Please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, make sure you get notified every time we have new stuff coming out. Give me a thumbs up if you're looking forward to this game, and leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Bears fan, Ducks fans, anybody who wants to talk about this game, please leave me a comment. And again, don't forget to share this video out. We're trying to help young athletes. We have instructional content on here. We have teaching content on here. We have all this entertainment content on here as well. So trying to help young athletes. The more you share it out, the more young athletes we can help. I appreciate you watching. Gave you a little game preview. Oregon Ducks, Cal Bears coming up this weekend. I'll be calling it from Memorial Stadium. Talk to you later.